So let me start off that this is a rumor. We don't know for sure, but unlike many other rumors, this does seem to have a little bit of credibility, so it may actually happen. Well, there's news that a Link adaptation is in development. Again, what does that mean? Where will they be going with this? Apparently, this will be an animated adaptation, so it's not going to be live action. They're just going to do an animated version of Legend of Zelda. No details about which specific story. Are we talking about the very, very early Nintendo games, the Super NES, right? Link to the Past, Ocarina, or even the more newer games? It's not clear. I would assume they're going to try to do something a little bit in between and just borrow heavily from little bits and pieces of the different Zelda games. Again, we know the basic story, and that's pretty central in a lot of the games. Link has to find a way to defeat Ganon, save the princess, the Triforce, so on and so forth. So the basic story is well known. Again, there's many variations, expansions, etc., etc. So that's where we are. That there's news that it is in development. Now, development in Hollywood can mean many, many different things. It could just mean that they're getting ready a script, they're taking in pitches, they may be going forward, but again, something may not happen, but they are planning to do something. So, what to think about this? I'm a pretty hardcore Link person. I go all the way back from the very, very beginning. I played the game when it first came out in the 80s. I liked both of them. They thought they were really strong. They are very different. If you are a very hardcore Legend of Zelda person, you'll know that the first game and second game are radically different. And there's a lot of criticism of the second game that it went a little bit too far. And then they pulled it back with Link to the Past and then with Ocarina and so on and so forth. I'm a little uneven. I played and beat the first two games, also Link to the Past. I played a lot of Ocarina, but did not finish it. And I played a little bit of the Mask game, but didn't finish that. I'm not even aware of the newer versions of the game. I'm more into the older versions, and I do like them keeping it pretty simple. And you will know as a Link fan that they have kind of adapted Link before. There was a little bit with the Super Mario Brothers. They had sort of a solo cartoon devoted on Fridays to Link. It wasn't much, and it was a little erratic, but I thought that was pretty good, although it was very juvenile. There was even a Captain N episode, I think, where there was a crossover with Link and Captain N. I thought that was pretty delightful too. I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but that was an interesting little adaptation as well. So we have had Link outside the games, but it's been fairly limited. And of course, a lot of video game adaptations have been criticized for being much, much weaker than the source material. That's why The Last of Us is getting such intense scrutiny, because it does seem like it will finally set a very strong standard for video game adaptations going forward. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration to say that there have been no good adaptations, but definitely on the whole, the adaptations from games have been fairly erratic in quality. So will Link be able to upset that trend? Well, there are several problems. Canonically, Link is a very weird character. There's a myth among the fans that he doesn't talk. He does talk, he is able to speak, but Link usually has very, very little dialogue. And again, a lot of films, especially action adventure films or epic fantasy films, usually want their protagonist to at least do some talking. So that's going to be a bit of a hurdle for Link. First, getting the voice actor correct, and then really not having him speak very much, because again, in the games he doesn't speak very much. So are we going to keep totally to the game? Are we going to follow all the rules of the game? It's unclear. And there seems to be a split among the fandom that they want to move very far from the source, or they want to keep with the boundaries of the game. So I'm sort of in between. I prefer them keeping to the broad structure, but if they want to change a few things, like have Link speak a little bit more, I think that would be fine. But then again, which version of Link? Ocarina was kind of interesting. It had both versions. It had the very, very young version of Link and the much older teenage version. But usually the adaptations have been stuck with that. Like, which version of the video game character are we going to use? We're going to use the early version, the middle version, the late version, young version, older version. Although I'm a little bit lukewarm with the Super Mario Brothers adaptation coming up, I did think the design they settled on for Super Mario was actually pretty good. I think that design kind of encompasses the early and later versions. So it's always going to be a little bit of back and forth in terms of which version. I guess we know that basically he's going to have kind of elfin ears. He's going to have a shield and a sword. He's going to be prepared for battle, etc., etc. But again, getting the exact design that's going to please everyone is probably going to be very controversial. So It's some welcome news. Again, it's not confirmed totally, but it does. It hopefully should generate some buzz among the fan community of what they want from Link and where they want to go with it. So I am tentatively hopeful they'll get it right, but again, it depends on a lot. Will the Super Mario Brothers movie work out? Will it be a big hit? Will people really embrace it? Still a lot of unanswered questions, but I would assume that if Super Mario Brothers does have a really good opening weekend, that probably by the second weekend, they're going to make an official announcement that at least they're developing this officially. It may still go nowhere because, again, a lot of things are developed in Hollywood. They never end up going anywhere, but it does show that the studios are interested in doing something with Link, and even if they don't do it, some other studio may do it. Because with Sonic, I know that Sonic began at one studio, but they let it go. Eventually, the other studio developed it, and it's made a lot of money. So it's a very different atmosphere from the 90s, where the video game adaptations were not always the best. They didn't always have the best budget, and even when they were sincere, they were really strange and wacky. We'll just say that much. So, some tentative hope that they're going to get Link right, but there's still a lot of questions to be answered.